Hello everybody and welcome back to another Pokémon Emerald video. Today I will be playing through the game with the Ninetales, one of the original 151 Pokémons and one of the many stone evolutions from that generation. I was today years old when I found out that Ninetales' name is Nine Tails, like in a story, not like in tail, the animal part. You learn something new every day. For the rules, I can only use my starter in combat, I can't use items from my bag in battle, I can't raise my evasion in any way, and I can't use cheats or glitches. Ninetales has some decent stats, but the weak part of this Pokémon is the moveset, at least in this generation. For whatever reason, most of the stone evolutions have very bad level up movesets. I guess the people at the Game Freak thought that you would get most of the moves when the Pokémon was still unevolved and then evolve it with the stone. But since today I am starting with the evolved form, that is not really possible. At least the Ninetales starting moveset is pretty good. Ember is fine, at least is a special stab move for the start of the game. Quick Attack does not have the extremely annoying 5% chance to miss that Tackle has, and Confuse Ray, while very RNG dependent, could be useful. The first few fights in the game proved no match for Ninetales, but then we got to Roxanne. Here I thought I would lose quite a few times, so before even attempting her the first time, I leveled to level 20. But then something incredible happened. I got very good RNG with Ember and I got a few crits and burns when I needed to, as well as a lot of hitting themselves in confusion with Confuse Ray. Between those two things, I was able to reach her ace Pokémon, and with a bunch more luck, I was able to defeat it in the first attempt. And the major reason for that is Confuse Ray, but other than that, Ember eventually got a burn, so when I finally got hit by a rock tomb, it did not deal that much damage, since Nosepass had her attack halved in half. Once we surprisingly earned the first badge with no issues, we can do the Pico side quest in the Wismore cave. This Team Aqua Grant is very weak compared to what we just got through, so defeating him was not a big deal. Moving on, after rescuing the Seagull Pokémon, we can leave town, but before doing so, I took on the optional fight against our rival May. Her team is not too bad against me. Her first Torkoal is sort of a problem to deal with, since my physical attack is not going to do much damage and it resists Ember. So taking this fire turtle down took quite a few attempts, but fortunately he did not attack me in the meantime. Mudkip decided to be a bit annoying and it spammed Bide over and over, but by playing around it with Confuse Ray, I was able to defeat it before it could touch me. The next gym in order is Brawly, but here I lost once, mostly because Makuhita has the thick fat ability, which makes it so it takes half the damage from Ember and any other fire move. Since it was very close, I decided to attempt Brawly again, and this time around I got a bit more lucky, and I was able to eventually defeat the Makuhita. On the first turn, I went for a quick attack since it did not increase his defense yet, and then with a couple of self-hits thanks to confusion, I was able to defeat the ace Pokémon without any major issues. Next is the couple of Team Aquagrants in Slateport. These guys are usually very easy to deal with, and today was really not that different. Ember is not the best move to use against them, since their Carvanas resist it, but even though I take a little bit of damage from rough skin, quick attack can easily finish them off. Once we saved the captain from the Team Aquagrants, we have to listen to Archie for a little while, and then we can resume our journey. Our next major encounter is going to be against May again in the land bridge before Moville. This time around, her team is much more dangerous, mostly because her starter has now evolved, and it has the move Mudshot. Since it is stab, super effective, and my physical defense is not the greatest, I was worried about getting two-shotted. But then it turned out that Slugma was more threatening, since it put me to sleep and then dealt some decent damage with rock moves. After we have defeated May here too, we can get to the next gym, but before doing so, I stopped for a little while and grinded money to buy Flamethrower. Ninetales doesn't even learn it through level up, so I do not regret buying it. For this point in the game, it's also an extremely strong move that allows me to pretty much one-shot everything that Wattson has. The only thing that gives me a little bit more trouble is Manectric, but he soon follows to a follow-up Flamethrower. And now that we have the Dynamo badge too, we can resume our journey until eventually we get to Meterfall Caves. Here we meet the two teams and we are informed about Max's plan. To try to stop him, we climb the local volcano and get to the fight against him. This fight could also be a bit hard. Not really because of Intimidate. While I have a physical move, it's not really the best thing I can do. The real problem is Camerupt, since it resists fire and knows a ground move. Unsurprisingly, Maxi does not play it very well, and I was able to defeat it before Camerupt could destroy me with a magnitude. The remaining Zubat is not really a challenge, and with that we have stopped Maxi for now. From here we have to get to the next town, which is at the base of the volcano, and once we reached it, we can challenge the fourth gym leader. Flannery was interesting, because for once I am not worried about her fire moves. Thanks to my ability, I can completely ignore those, but she can still be very annoying. Attract can be extremely toxic if it decides to, and her last two Pokémons have decent physical moves that can deal some good damage to me. Fortunately, nothing too bad happened, and while I had to spend a few turns against Torkoal, she was nice enough to set up the sun for me, allowing me to defeat it in 2 hits after the potions. Now that she is done too, we have to backtrack quite a while and get to our dad's gym. Norman was much more challenging. Not really because of his base Pokémons, I am sure I can defeat them very easily with 1 or 2 flamethrowers, but the thing that worried me the most is the slacking, not because of counter, since I am using a special attack, but because of yawn. If I end up sleeping a lot of turns, it could have enough time to use a few facades on me and defeat me. And that's the reason why I equipped a chest of berry to wake up on the first turn if that was to happen. After defeating Norman, we can get the Surf HM and use it to reach the other side of the region. Here eventually we reach the Weather Institute, where we have to take down Shelly as usual. As you might imagine, she is not really a big deal. I can just spam flamethrowers against her Pokémons, and in a couple of turns she goes down. The fight that could be a bit challenging is the one against our rival soon after. My move pool has improved with the addition of flamethrower and secret power, and while I am not worried about losing, Marshtomp could do some decent damage with Mudshot. Then I saw how much damage it did, and I questioned why I was so worried in the first place. Up next is the fight against the 6th gym leader, and Winona manages to defeat me thanks to a triple hit in confusion followed up by an earthquake. I guess I can't have all the luck on my side. The second attempt goes a bit better. While I still end up getting confused by Pelipper and I hit myself a couple of times, is not as bad as the previous attempt. I snap out of it pretty quickly and can proceed to defeat the Altaria in a couple of attacks. From there, the rest of the team does not really pose any threat, and I can defeat them with a couple of flamethrowers. After defeating Winona, we can make our way to the next town, where we have to defeat May once again. At least this time, it's going to be the last fight against her. Her team improved a little bit more, but it's nowhere near enough to pose a serious challenge to me. Once again, I am not able to defeat Marshtomp in one attack, and it fires back with a Mudshot, but the damage is very low compared to what I was expecting, and so I can finish her team off a couple of turns later. Now that we have defeated her for the last time, we can resume the story. By getting to the Pokémon Tower, we can get the Magma Emblem, and with this key item, we can enter the secret cave where Groudon is. We get to the legendary Pokémon a bit too late and see Maxie waking it up. Of course, since he used the wrong orb, the legendary flees and Maxie attacks us. Once again, Camerupt is the most threatening Pokémon on his team because now it has Earthquake as well as Amnesia. So he can be a real threat if only the Pokémon AI was a bit smarter. Instead, it spent most of its turns doing nothing, so eventually I can defeat it before it can do the same to me. Once we have finally defeated the Team Magma leader, we can get to the Team Aqua base, but here we are only able to find one of their admirals. The fight against this guy was not exactly challenging, but after this I had to spend quite a few time preparing for the next challenge, because Tate and Liza proved to be very difficult. I attempted them a few times, but I always lost near the end. Not only that, but apparently OBS decided to fight me too, because from here to the rest of the game, the footage is a bit grainy and low quality. I only realized about it once I was editing the footage. Anyway, the final and winning attempt in this double fight is not really that different from my previous ones. I just got a bit more lucky. The biggest problem is that I do not have that great of moves to deal with Lunatone and Solrock. Flamethrower in the sun is not that bad, but if they manage to set up multiple Calm Minds as well as a light screen, my damage falls off a cliff. And this is where I would generally lose, because since I am not able to defeat one of the two Pokémons fast, they can attack me multiple times a turn, and eventually I cannot take all of that damage. The solution to that is confuse Ray and hope that they hit themselves multiple times, so that they can do some more damage to themselves and most importantly, do not attack me. The last remaining Pokémon proved to be quite the challenge, because by this point Lunatone had a lot of Calm Minds as well as a light screen active. So against all judgment, I switched to Return and saw that it dealt a lot more damage, and thanks to that I was finally able to win this fight. While I did not lose that many times, it was extremely frustrating. Unfortunately, we are not quite done with the double fights, because immediately after the last one, we have to help Steven take down the leadership of Team Magma. This fight is always a bit weird, because the two camera-ups have Earthquake, and so it could be very difficult, but usually their AI decides to never use it. And today too, it decided to go down that road. Don't get me wrong, that's great for me, that's a lot less damage that they can do. And while they may take a couple more attacks to defeat since they use multiple amnesias, I will take that every day over a loss. After a little while, we can defeat all of Max's Pokémons, and by turning this fight into a 2v1 in my favor, it also made it a lot easier. With Metang attacking the same target as I was, most of their Pokémons were defeated in a single turn, and so in no time we are done with this fight too. The reward for stopping the Team Magma is the Dive HM, and we can use that move immediately to reach the Seafloor Cave. Here we meet Archie, the leader of Team Aqua, who wants to resurrect the legendary Pokémon Groudon. To try to stop him, we fight him, and while his team has a water type, it is a lot easier to deal with than Maxi. Sharpedo does not have any water move, and even if he did, that's going to do a lot less damage because of Sunny Day. In the end, Crobat turned out to be a much bigger deal with confusion and such. Once we have defeated him, the red orb activates anyway and wakes up the legendary. And now that both of them are awake, they are causing the weather in the region to be a mess because of their respective abilities. To put an end to all of that, we go ask Rayquaza for help, and of course he is more than willing to aid us. He immediately makes the two legendaries stop fighting, and so we can resume the badge collection by taking on the last of the gym leaders. Juan uses water types mainly, and that should be very bad for us since they have the type advantage. To try to mitigate that, I can use Sunny Day, but that left me open to get confused by Latvisk. And because RNG was not on my side this time around, I had to spend a couple of turns hitting myself before I can get rid of the heart Pokémon. Moving on, I can one-shot the Celio, which is a bit weird considering the ability, but I'll take it. Then I have to switch to Return for Whiscash because of Amnesia, and I will probably have to do the same to Kingdra since it 4 times resists fire. This Kingdra can be very annoying with double team, but at least I did not have to deal with that in this fight. Once the last of the gym leaders is defeated too, we can finally use all of the HMs in the game and enter the victory road. After taking a couple of steps, we are reached by Wally, who wants a challenge. The most dangerous Pokémon here is Altaria because it knows Earthquake and can increase his attack with Dragon Dance. I can defeat the Cloud Dragon before it can attack me, and that's a great relief. The rest of the team is not too problematic. They are somewhat weak to fire, at least until Gardevoir comes out, for whom I can just switch back to Return and defeat surprisingly in a single attack. Since I expected the league to be a pain, especially Wallace, I decided to level quite a bit before entering it. Not all the way to 100 because I have a couple of candies to get there if necessary. Things start off very well by me being able to one-shot everything that Sidney has with a flamethrower. I probably should have equipped a charcoal since I am mainly using fire moves, at least for now, and that held item would have increased the damage from fire moves a little bit more. For Phoebe, I used the turn where her lead uses Protect to set up the sun, and thanks to the increase to fire damage from the weather, I am able to one-shot everything on her team as long as the sun stays up, and that is until her last Pokémon, but as I thought, I did not need it to one-shot the last Banette. Next is Glacia, and she uses Ice types, so this fight should be easy, right? Well, not so much. Her Celios and Walrein have the ability Tick Fat that cuts in half the damage from fire attacks, so against them it's better to use Return instead of Flamethrower. For the two Glalis I can freely switch back to Flamethrower since that move should be more than enough to one-shot them. Fortunately, Celio and Walrein are not too damage oriented, so even though I take a couple of attacks, is nothing to worry about. And now for another hard fight, we have to defeat Drake. I lost once, but things were extremely close, and so I immediately attempted him again. In this attempt, I got lucky and not so much at the same time. I was able to set up the sun freely against Shelgon, but since he protected, I wasted one turn of it. Neither Return or Flamethrower was enough to one-shot Flygon, and so I had to eat an Earthquake, which dealt a lot of damage to me. But the worst part was Salamane's coming out next. Because of his Intimidate, Return is not going to be able to deal that much damage, and even Flamethrower in the sun is not that great against him. After losing a bunch more HP against it, Kindra came out, but fortunately Return was still a two-shot, so I did not have to worry much about it, and the same goes for Altaria, since this one too has Earthquake. It may not seem like it, but this fight was quite close too. And finally, we have reached the champion. I was very worried about Wallace, and sure I lost once, but that's way better than what I was expecting. Between the bad type matchup and his Pokémons being very tanky, I thought I would lose many times against him, but that did not turn out to be the case. Sunny Day is very effective here since it both increases my fire damage, which is useful for a couple of Pokémons, but most importantly it lowers his water attacks. And that's the best part, because all of his Pokémons have at least one very powerful water attack. I would have really liked to see Gyarados come out last, because first of all he is sort of a wall himself. His special defense is very high, so even though I just got intimidated, return ends up doing more damage, especially if I get a crit. But the real problem of Intimidate is Milotic, since if I don't have enough damage it can stall me out. Instead, I just barely had enough attack to two-shot it after the berry. And just like that, Ninetales is the champion of the Hoenn region. This run was not too bad. Sure, I lost a few times, but considering the bad moveset and not so great type matchup, it could have been worse. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe and all of that YouTube stuff. If you have comments with ideas, feedback, leave it down below. And I'll see you next week. Bye!